Hey everyone, it's Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have an Xbox One game review here. I guess this is kind of just a straight up regular old game. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's part of a series that I've never heard of. I picked this up for my birthday with some birthday money, and I don't think I did a video on my birthday haul for you guys. I totally just realized that I picked up things in that previous video I talked about in my haul video for things I grabbed in Black Friday and towards the beginning of November, like the Spider-Man 1 and 2 PlayStation 2 games, but I totally forgot to tell you about what I picked up with stuff like this with some birthday money. I don't think I showed you, but anyway, it's another story, not a big deal. Picked up some cool things at GameStop with some birthday money that I got from my dad and from some other family members. This particular game I had never heard of, and mind you, I'd been out of the gaming sphere for a while, so I really didn't know how much the makers of Until Dawn had really set their teeth and their claws into the rest of the gaming world. I don't mean that in a bad way either. I mean, I didn't realize how popular they had become. I know Until Dawn was a relative hit, even if I wasn't impressed with a lot of what I saw of it. But I was hoping it would be something that would kind of come and go, but it seems like they've really made a staple for themselves. This is a series they have called the Dark Pictures Anthology. This first game I'm going to review is the first one I've ever played, even though there's a lot of other ones that are apparently more well-received, more popular, I don't know. This one is called House of Ashes. It is the 2021 release of these games. They kind of have a series. Now, I had started playing this about 2 weeks ago, and one of the things I realized pretty quick is that it had it listed that I could download other quote-unquote episodes from the Xbox Store. Of course, I don't do that shit. I don't buy downloadable DLC nonsense because it won't last. Eventually, you will lose that stuff when the servers go down. So I was very much in the place of, I'm not going to do that. But I was kind of bummed because I really liked what I saw of this so far at that time. And I wanted more. Well, then I found out that they did release each of these games on a disc. So hopefully, God willing, in the future that the servers still work, even though I don't trust Xbox One, and I sure as shit do not trust Microsoft. I will start picking up those in 2023. House of Ashes. I was very surprised to see that Ashley Tisdale from High School Musical and from Disney back in the day was cast as kind of the lead, but kind of not. We really follow another character named Eric, but Ashley Tisdale is kind of the most well-known person in this movie, or in this game, I mean. Now, this is the Xbox One game. Of course, you can also play this on Xbox Series X, which it is what it is. Kind of think it's a little weird because it seems like everything has to be downloaded from a cloud, so, The game is not very long. It's about 4 or 6 hours, somewhere in there in that ballpark. I think it's closer to 5. But I'll tell you this. I went into this knowing nothing, and so my review is going to be kind of vague. I know this has been out for a while, but I want to be vague because for the folks out there who have not played this game yet, who are horror fans like myself and fans of this kind of heavy rain style game where you're basically watching a movie, you have QTEs that you have to hit certain buttons at random times. If you like that kind of thing like myself, this will be a surprise to you. I didn't know it was going to be that kind of, playable movie aspect when I picked it up at GameStop at the beginning of November when I had my birthday. But I'm really glad I got it because it really, really impressed me for the most part. Now, I want to tell you, I have a lot of issues with this game, particularly in the third act of the game, but we'll get there. This is a spoiler-free review, but I will be fairly vague, like I said, because I don't want to spoil the kind of surprises I had with this game. For the most part, I want to say about 75% of the game I really love. Not love. I think it's really good. The game looks good, the graphics are really solid. And the general premise and setup I thought was pretty cool. Essentially, you have a kind of a guy called the Curator in a very creepshow fashion. He walks in with some really badass music. It sounds like it should be generic rock music, but it wasn't. I actually really liked what I heard of that. But he comes in, makes a very kind of pompous intro for himself, walking down like alleyways and hallways and stuff. But anyway, he comes into kind of a study that he has, sitting in the dark, and he starts telling us some spooky stories, mainly this one this time around called House of Ashes. If you play the other games, he tells you a different story for each one of those games. And House of Ashes being my first one, I didn't know, like I said, anything going into this. I figured it was a horror game. I didn't really know what direction we were going, what the story would be. And at first, I was a little worried. I was a little worried how this was going to be, whether it would be any good, whether they could pull this story off in the kind of fashion they did with the Heavy Rain style game. So, essentially what this game starts off being, the actual plot of the game that the curator is telling you about, I believe the game takes place in 2003. I believe. The actual story that we're reading about, or playing, whatever. Essentially, there's a military situation going on in the Middle East. Of course, this is right after 9/11, a couple of years before. I believe this is during 2003. I could be wrong. About 20 years ago, which is weird to say. So you are playing mainly as a guy named Eric, and throughout the game you switch around to different people, the different characters from the game, most of them. You have about 5 different perspectives you play as. And you start off as a guy named Eric, who is going to his wife's team, who he is separated from for the last year or so. And she's already moved on and started dating a new guy in that team named Nick, who is a total douchebag. I can't fucking stand that guy. I hate his guts. Throughout the game, he is such a scumbag. They try their best in the writing team to make him redeemable by the end. I think he's a piece of shit, plain and simple. Ashley Tisdale plays the wife character that I'm talking about that is separated from the main character, Eric. Eric does not know that Ashley Tisdale is cheating on him and moved along, even though they kind of separated because of career growth, which is stupid. Never risk your marriage for something like that. But it seems like they fell into this situation. He does not know that Ashley Tisdale is seeing people now, this Nick fella. And that kind of develops into some of the tension in the story. Again, Until Dawn's creators that made this game series are kind of well known for that, of having this kind of character-driven narrative. This is very much a case of that. This really doesn't get plot hefty until about halfway into the game when it really sparked my interest. But anyway, we have that team that Ashley Tisdale runs for the military, and Eric has to come in as a special force type of thing and kind of take it over. So they kind of have to, work together now. But Eric doesn't realize she's cheating on him. So she's like, oh, okay. Or he's like, okay, we can work out our marriage and stuff now. Okay. Now there's another guy that's, I think he's either a colonel or a lieutenant. I can't remember what they call him. I'm really bad at rankings in the military. But these are all American folk. And this particular actor, I don't know his name, but he plays this character named Jason. He happens to wear a 9/11 cap that says never forget. I will tell you this. I think this is my favorite character in the entire game. I feel bad for Eric and the stuff that he has to deal with his wife cheating on him. But Jason is such an all-around badass. He talks like Clarice from Silence of the Lambs, with that kind of dentures talk that Clarice has in Silence of the Lambs. That weird accent that she has, that West Virginia accent. That's what Jason has, and I really love it. It's great. The voice actor's great. The mocap, which is pretty much everybody in this game, is mocapped. God forbid you see what they did to Ashley Tisdale. She doesn't even look like herself. It's fucking horrible. Everybody else, even side characters that you don't really care about, like Nick. Well, he's not a side character, but you know what I mean. The people like that, everybody in the game pretty much looks really good for the mocap stuff. But poor Ashley Tisdale, they treated like shit. She looks awful. She has this dead eye look, like the Jaws eye look, like there's no soul in there. Everybody else doesn't look like that, which is bizarre to me. At first I thought it was being like kind of a character-specific type of thing for the kind of character she's playing. The more that I played this game, I don't think that's the case. I just think it's bad design. She looks like a dead-eyed freak the whole game. But Jason, I love. Favorite character in the game, love him, and it really pisses me off how the writing team constantly tries to make him out to be a bad guy because he cares about 9/11, because he wants to serve in the military because of 9/11. They constantly try to make him out to be like a racist, but he's not the enemy of the game, like they kind of try to make you feel like, he's flawed, but he's a good character. Shut the hell up. Jason is the best character, best well-rounded person in the entire game, in my opinion, no matter what anybody says. Now, you have another perspective that you follow as well, named Salim. He happens to be in the Middle East military. I think it's Iraqi, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm not really great with my states and everything, areas and all that. I'm not good with all that stuff overseas either. So, Salim is kind of a cool guy, but I kind of don't trust him because of the things he pulls in this game sometimes. And you play as him sometimes, so you get to make some of those choices. But I really don't like this character all that much. I think he's a little sneaky, He basically gets called in when he just got home from the military to go on another military operation where he and a team will have to confront this other team that we've been talking about. Eric, Ashley Tisdale, Jason, all those guys. So things go pretty rough, and when they have a massive firefight shootout thing, basically the ground collapses. I don't really know why, but it does. And they fall into a massive pit hundreds of feet below the surface of the earth. And while they're down there, they encounter these creatures as they kind of go through whatever these weird, like, ancient catacomb-looking things are. There's clearly a civilization that was kind of buried over time. As they go through there, they encounter these creatures. Now, I want to tell you this. When I started playing this game, I liked it. It looked pretty. Looked very good for the most part. It was too dark. I had to turn up the brightness, and then it kind of ruined the graphics a little bit, but that is what it is. You know, I'm getting old. I have to accept that. But as I played this, I was thinking, you know, this is kind of generic. The monsters themselves, they kind of avoid showing you a lot of things about these monsters, what they look like, especially in the prologue where you play some of the ancient civilization that was underground. And I thought, you know, they're trying to save up some tension. Well, the game kind of pulls a lot of cheap-ass jump scares that really aren't even well done. It kind of cheats with that, with the scare factor. The game itself is not scary at all. I think one of these many, many, many predictable, not clever jump scares got me like one time in the entire game. For 4 or 5 hours, that's kind of sad. The story for me, though, got a lot better. It got a lot better about halfway through when we realize what these creatures are. They actually take a very classical monster, and this is not a spoiler. They take a classical monster that you and I both have heard of and know of, and they change up the lore a little bit on them. And I thought that was really, really well done. Until they ruined it. You remember the third act complaint I had earlier that I brought up, just briefly? The third act of this game is so fucking broken. I don't know what happened. Between the awful writing and the way they take that particular monster that I'm talking about and take the story and the origin of those things even further to the most stupid shit that I've ever heard of in my life. And if you ever described it to somebody, the way they would look at you would be with a little bit of belittlement, let's be honest. Because it sounds like you should be judged for sitting through the rest of this shit. The story goes so bad. But I noticed about halfway through the game, I started having a lot of issues with pop-ins, right? Like a lot of pop-ins were happening. A lot of textures weren't showing up. Everything would be rugged and rickety and dirty. And then all of a sudden, you have like this weird Play-Doh looking thing. And then the texture would pop in over top of it to look like stone. You know, that happened so much about halfway through the game. And I was still enjoying it. You know, I don't have an issue with that. But when I got to the third act of the story today, when the story got so stupid, so incredibly stupid, I started noticing a lot of other issues that I hadn't had up until this point. I don't know if it's an Xbox thing or what, but in the third act, I started having issues with the sound. The sound started getting very, I don't really know what to call it, kind of staticky. It's almost like if there was any bass and booms from explosions or anything, it got very staticky. And it kind of worried me. I thought I'd blown out like the bass on the speakers on the TV, but then I would pause it, I'd go to the menu, I'd click around, it'd be fine. I put it on regular TV when I got to the menu of the game after I finished it up. That was weird. It's not my Xbox, it's not my TV, it's the actual game apparently. I don't know what happened. Just a great example of something not being finished. The game, I like when it stays in this kind of weird urban legend type of thing. I really think that portion of the story is really well done. I enjoy it. But as we delve further into this game, it goes in a very different route to a very different genre that I just think sucked for this. It was such a bad idea. And when I see the other games from the Dark Pictures Anthology, like Man of Medan, I think is what it is, or Medallion, however you say that last word, Man of Medan, I don't know. When I see how those stories look, or when I see The Devil in Me, and how that looks as a game, that's the next one after this one. I think it's the 2022 release. When I see those things, they look really, really great. They look great, and they don't look like they would go the direction this game went. I can't tell you as much fun as I had a lot of the time, most of the time I would even say, with this game. I can't sit here and tell you this is perfect. With all the issues I had in that third act, with the story issues, with the narrative, the characters, again, I hate a big chunk of them. I think Ashley Tisdale's character is terrible. I think she's a good actress, but I think that character is a piece of shit. Eric is not being selfish for what he's doing. I don't care what the writer's room wants to say. Eric is being cheated on. Stop making him out to be the bad guy. That's bullshit. Jason is not a racist. That really irks the hell out of me, too, that they keep trying to manipulate the story and the dumbasses in the group to make him look that way. Then you have Nick, who's just a piece of shit and plain and simple. But you have other characters, too. There's one particular that's like an older guy. He's Asian. I really like him. He's mean. He's funny. There's a guy with glasses he banters with a whole lot. I like him a whole lot, too. There's not really a whole lot of gore or anything. Again, most of the gameplay is you walking around, picking up and inspecting things, reading documents, and you have little things where you get premonitions, and you make choices throughout the game. When you talk to people, when you get stuck in a QTE, you might choose to leave somebody behind and run away, and you might choose to have a shootout, or you might have to hit a certain button to make sure you stab something in the right place, or you might have to aim a crosshair on your screen in a certain direction to shoot at something or someone. Those kinds of things happen, and that's kind of nice. I haven't played a game like this in a very long time, since I'm getting back into gaming after so long of being out of it. There's a lot of cool things I'm experiencing for the first time in a long time with this game, but I will tell you, for the most part, this game's kind of a mess. One of the biggest issues I had, too, is when you're investigating the catacombs and the tunnels and whatever, and you're walking around in very tight corridors, right? And like I said, the game was kind of dark. Today, I finally had to just give in and turn the brightness up, because it had gotten so dark that the flashlights in the game, I couldn't really see much of anything. But the walking around with the joystick on your console, on your controller, feels kind of stiff. There are moments where it's like you're going through those narrow hallways and stuff, and if you even slightly look like you're about to bump into something, your character just stops moving. like he'll like kind of just do like the Nico Bellic thing, like when you'd hit a wall or something walking around and just kind of gently bounce off. Like they'll do that, but they aren't touching anything, right? Like it kind of got annoying at times because I would get hung up as a character on like invisible walls that I couldn't figure out how to get the fuck out of. I had to walk backwards and then go around it. It was annoying. It was weird. A lot of games nowadays have that issue, though. And a lot of things like this and like Heavy Rain tend to have that kind of issue, too. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's like the gameplay designers had to cheat and then they sucked at that angle of the creativity or something. I don't know. I don't want to say that, but it feels like sometimes people cheat out the player by doing weird shit like that. It's a very narrative-driven game, a very character-driven game when I say narrative-driven. And if you like that kind of thing, I think you'll really enjoy it. If you like the worry about where these characters are going by the end of this game, I can tell you it's kind of neat. I would almost like to go back at some point if the game hadn't gotten so fucking stupid narrative-wise, and the actual plot, and the origin of those creatures we're talking about. If it hadn't gotten so fucking dumb, I would have loved to have gone back and done complete opposite choices of what I did, just to see what would happen by the end of the game. But there's a lot of times these characters in here, I don't care if they die or not. I like Eric and I love Jason, and that's about it. Other people, they're terrible, they suck, I don't like them. But I had a good time. I sound very negative in this review. The more I think about it as I, process what I saw, what I played over the last few days or few weeks or whatever, while I had time to play this. I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies, so that's kind of factored into, me having time to play this. As I've played it, I've had a good time. Really, I didn't start to, really dislike it until today with all the technical issues that started happening, the really bad story choices that happened in that third act. I played the whole third act today. Like I said, I love the reference to The Exorcist in here. They actually have a Pazuzu reference in here. I know Pazuzu is a quote-unquote real thing, like people believed in that at one point, but I love the reference to specifically The Exorcist. Somebody mentions Pazuzu, they pick up a statue, and I think it's Ashley Tisdale's character is like, "You really don't watch horror movies, do you?" It was pretty cute. I liked that. Anyway, when it comes to the Dark Pictures Anthology, House of Ashes, I enjoyed it for the most part. Like I said, about 75% of the time I was having a good time. And I think about 75% of the time I didn't have a problem. It's a little bit of a slow story, a little bit of a slow narrative. This kind of game I understand being like that. A lot of people trash Heavy Rain for the first hour of the game being character development for Ethan, the main character of that game, or character development for other people in that game. I love that. I don't mind that as long as I'm engaged, as long as it's beautiful looking. And for me, I think Heavy Rain looks a lot better than this game does, which is sad because that's last gen. It's kind of weird. But the dead eyes look of Ashley Tisdale in this game is just That is something else. You haven't seen some shit like that before, I promise you, my friend. Anyway, the Dark Pictures Anthology, House of Ashes. I think this is like the 4th or the 5th game in this quote-unquote series, if you will. It was weak. I kind of feel like this would be the weakest of the series. I don't know. I'm curious of what the other games will be like as I collect them, as I play them. But I hope they're better than this, because the story direction here in that final act, it felt like total bloat. It felt like something Stephen King would do to try to really hit like let's say he had a very thin storyline that he was trying to do, and let's say he only made it to like 300 pages. He wanted to hit 400. That is what the third act of this game feels like in the bloat nature of it. But overall, I had a good time. As negative as I probably sound, I had a good time, and for the most part, the game looks good. Jason himself as a character is worth playing the game for, because he's great. I love him. But anyway, have you played the game? What did you think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below, folks. I would love to hear what you have to say about House of Ashes. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Very, very interesting game. And I will tell you this, no matter what issue I had with it, it was such a surprise to go into this knowing nothing about it, not even hearing about this being a big thing. This whole Dark Pictures Anthology legacy thing, no one had told me this existed. And I think it's kind of cool, because we have a lot of anthology series that are really popular nowadays, like Creepshow, for example. And you see little movies come out here and there that people like of that kind of thing, too. It's kind of cool that a gaming company went out and did that kind of thing. I respect Until Dawn's creators because of the reputation they have, but I really respect them now for doing this, and I really hope they do more of this kind of thing. I can't wait to check out those other games, like I said. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. God bless you all. Merry Christmas, even though this isn't a Christmas review, and goodbye.